Hey there, Lindsay here. Today we're going to paint a bird. I think it's a cedar waxwing. It's got that very smooth look of feathers, and I'm going to start by sketching with a col erase pencil, and I'm going to just kind of get a like a triangular shape in here to represent where the wings are, the back wings. And you could do this the other way, but there's kind of like a branch coming down with an apple on the end, and I just really like that shape. I like that orientation, so I think that would be kind of pretty to do. Get the tail in there, and get the bottom of the belly coming down here. Now it looks like the front feathers kind of come down like this. It almost looks like there's another wing, the way that the feathers go. Down here, get the neck, and let's kind of bring that into the head shape. Do an oval for the head. And bring that down, get the beak in there, the angle that I want it, get the little kind of crest. And then I can start to add a little detail. Once I get the basic shape down, then I can go into a little bit more detail. So I want to get that a little bit more round and get that wing sketched in. Because you're kind of looking slightly over and down on the bird. So yeah, this one's going to start down here a little bit more, just the shoulder blade area. And that's going to kind of swoop up here. Like that. And like the wing almost disappears into the back because of that kind of the type of plumage they had. Oh, you know what this is? Now that I'm looking here, this shape here that I'm seeing that's all fluffy, that's the feathers on the leg. Okay, we get this space in there where we can see a little sky in the background. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a background on this or not. I'd say let me know what you think in the comments, but by then the video will be done and I will already have painted whatever I decided to paint. Isn't that silly? Okay, and then we've got this branch. Let me figure out where the feet would be. The feet would be right about here, kind of under the body. We'd see a little bit of leg, and the feet and the kind of talons coming down. So let's get this branch drawn in there. Isn't that a neat orientation? I think it's so cool. I love to see things like that. I have some little twigs on the branch. Now I'm going to draw the fruit. It looks like an apple, but maybe it's a plum or something, just kind of gone by, because we can see in the photo, and I'll link that below. And if I forget, just be patient with me and remind me, okay? Because sometimes I forget. If I forget, just let me know, and I will link it. But it's on Unsplash, and the photographer is Anders Nord. So if I do forget and you want to look it up, you can do it that way. I'm just going to draw this little kind of pecked out area. And you can see that just the dimple of the bottom little stem. So I want to get that in there. And there we go. I typically, well, you can use the eraser. This is a col erase pencil by Prismacolor. I really like these. The best price I've seen on these have been Amazon, but any of your art supply retailers online will also have them. So like, you're making an order at Jerry's Artorama or wherever, and you want to tack on the order, then it might be a couple bucks more, but it's not going to be crazy. These are very inexpensive pencils, and I really love using them for drawing under watercolor, under markers, because it just gives me such a I don't know, I just love the line quality, and I love being able to pick colors. Now, some artists will just use like red or blue, like they pick a color and that's the color they sketch with. But I love having the options because some of the lines that I don't erase will remain because it's not water soluble. but I can erase them if I don't want them. Now you can see there's a little bit of a ghosting on some of those lines because it is a wax-based pencil. It's not a perfectly erasable pencil, but it's pretty darn good. So I'm just checking out the shape here to make sure I have that the way I want it. I should be using my, just to make sure that looks like it's from the leg. I just, yeah, I'll just cut a few like that. I should use a brush actually to sweep away my crumbs and not my hand, because then I could transfer oils, especially if you're someone who wears lotion like I do. Now, a background probably would be a good idea just because I have done some erasing and I had some lines out on the background. So I guess I will do a background. What I want to also do right now is actually throw in a little bit of detail on the face because there's a little smidgen I want to keep white. So I think if I do a background, I might not wet that little area behind the beak. Right in there where we've got this little patch of white. And this area in here, the wing would be very white too. Gosh, I'm really torn because I kind of want them just a plain white background too. But I do like to do my backgrounds first if I'm going to do them. See, that's the challenge there. I think I will put a background in because I do like backgrounds. I am going to keep it loose though because the picture is out of focus in the background. I'm going to spritz my watercolors while I'm at it. I'm using a new brand that was sent to me to review. Oh, you know what? I just said I was going to keep that white. I guess I should blot that off. This little area right here. I was going to not wet that. You could use masking fluid, totally, or wax or something. But I don't like to use a wax because then you can't add on top of that unless I'm absolutely sure I want it to be really light and textured. Now, let's see. Also, I like to flick on some water too, so it just gives me sometimes a different look. I'm going to start off with some yellow ochre. I poured these paints about a week ago, and none of them are cracking. I thought for sure they'd be cracking because I thought they looked a little chalky, but I don't like working. I'll show you my swatch here. This is the Paul Rubens 36 student set. I don't like working from wet paint. I prefer to be able to go in and add the colors that I want, add the amount of water that I want, and I just have better control going from dry paint. But a lot of times with your student grade paints, you end up with a chalkiness, and I don't like that. But this doesn't appear to be that chalky, so that's good. Ooh, that's a pretty burnt sienna. Actually, that's quite lovely. I haven't reviewed these yet. I do a couple paintings. I've done one little painting with it, and I wasn't really impressed with these paints, I have to say. They do have a little bit of an odor, I'm noticing. Not like crazy, but it definitely has a little bit of an odor to it. But I also think that, you know what, you can make decent art with whatever you have, with whatever you're, whatever you have accessible to you. So don't feel like you have to run out and buy this or that or the other thing just to make a painting. I'm ending up just doing a wet and wet wash. The spattering of paint didn't make any difference, really. Hopefully it didn't get any hand oils on my paper. I'm just going to let the paint drip and drizzle a little bit to give me a little bit of interest. You could also use salt, and that would give you kind of a snowy effect if that's what you're after. But I'm not. I can go right over the feet because the feet are real dark, so they will show up just fine. And if you're doing a wash where you are not using salt, or if you don't need the paints to granulate in any special way, you can go ahead and dry that with a hair dryer or a heat tool and it won't bother it. The only time I say don't use a hair dryer or a heat tool with watercolor is if you're trying to get some special effect, and like using salt, or if you've got a special paper or a special granulating paint. On those instances, it'd be good not to use a hair dryer or a heat tool, because that can flatten out some of those effects. I like that background, actually. If you want to, you can blot anything. You can make, I'm just blotting any paint that got on the bird. And there's some light spots in the background, so I'm just going to go ahead and blot a little bit up in the background. There's also some branches in the background, so if you want to show that, you can also do that before things dry. The key is when you go into a wet wash, so that you don't get blossoms, you want to make sure that your paint is less wet than what you have on your paper already. So I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, just making kind of a dark brown, almost black. I'm going to keep reusing the same colors as much as possible, and I'm just going to go in and just paint some branches. If you're not sure if you have too much paint on your brush, then you can just blot it on a tissue, and then you can go ahead and try painting. If you notice that nothing comes off of your brush when you go to paint, then you might need to just add a little bit more paint. Oh, I like kind of how this gives me a really neat abstract look. I kind of like that. It's almost like it's almost got like this fractured glass type of effect. Oh, I like that. It almost reminds you of like a storybook. So it's very pale. I've kept everything really pale, just kind of bring it in and show you. See, super, super pale. I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll start working on the bird. So I just grabbed the paints because I was curious. There are pigment information on the paint in English that we can read. Well, the pigment number, the color index number that you would be familiar with. So yeah, 254, Madder Red Light. So that's a good sign. I definitely like these a lot better using them dry from the pans than when I swatched them wet from the tubes, because I thought it looked a little chalky from the tubes. I mean, not chalky is the wrong word, but is the wrong word. It just looked, I wasn't that happy with them, but I like them a lot better now that I have wet them. I think I'm going to start with the apple, because that's going to be my most vibrant part of the picture. And I'm going to take some yellow ochre. I'm going to add that right in the center. Let me do it a little bit brighter. I'm still working with a limited palette, and I will list my colors down below. And you can, of course, follow with whatever you have. You don't have to go buy these paints. There's so many paints. Oh my gosh. I am happy to have the opportunity to review them. I know that that is a privilege, and it's fun. I really enjoy. Oh, there's dewdrops on there. Those will be fun to paint. And I really, really happy to have that privilege. But you don't need all the paints. You know, it's fun to get a lot of paints. It's fun to collect them and to have the options. But a lot of times, I think it can just make you. It can just kind of make you overwhelmed when you go to paint something. So I'm doing this Madder Red Light. This is kind of, actually, this looks a lot like a alizarin crimson. Like your traditional alizarin crimson that uses PR83, which is fugitive. So I would go with a permanent one. Or Cad Red Deep. Grab a little bit. I like to swatch my colors just because it can be very difficult to figure out what you have when you are when you're going from the dry paint. So this is a good sign actually that a lot of the paints look a lot darker now that they're dry from the swatch. So hopefully it means there's not a ton of optical brighteners in it, but these are student grade paints. So you know, you always want to keep that in mind when you're buying paints. It's always a good idea to look for reviews. I'm actually a little bit more pleased with these when I first got them, and I was like, oh, these seem to be kind of chalky, or I just didn't know because I was working with them wet from the tube to just watch them. But anyway, I will do a review after I have played with them a bit more and post them on my channel. They're affordable, but you know, they are a little bit on the expensive side for student grade paints. They're definitely not as expensive as artist grade, but definitely something to consider. I just blotted my brush off there. I'm grabbing a little more yellow ochre and just kind of integrating those colors. I also want to have a little bit of a purpley hue in parts of this. I'm going to grab the ultramarine because that's what I've already used. And I'm going to mix it with that madder red light or alizarin crimson. And just kind of add some to the edges here. I'll probably do the cast reflections with a colored pencil because there's also some little feathers. Wispy feathers I think would do really well to do with colored pencil. And that's another tip. If you've got student grade paints and you're not pleased with the vibrancy, or you're not pleased with the color selection, or if they do look chalky, go over them with some colored pencils. That really does improve them quite a bit. Let's see. This looks really dark, but this is kind of the darkest thing, but besides the black on the face, that's really the darkest thing in the painting. So like I mentioned in my cathedral oil painting sketchbook Sunday, if you haven't seen that, it's got a lot of information about values that you might find helpful. Even if you don't do oils, it's still helpful for whatever type of art you do. You know, I like to get those darks in first because I find it's just a little bit easier to control. Now let's see. I'm going to blot a couple areas because there are like the highlight around the area where it's been pecked, and there's a little highlight here at the top. And I'm just folding to a fresh piece of my paper towel as I go, just to get a nice dry area to blot from. Now I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, and I'm going to put a wash on the bird. Actually, no, I will stay with that number 8 round because the first wash on that bird I want to be pretty bright. And actually, I've got a little line there that I should have erased. I'm just going to do that right now because I don't have any paint on top of it. Only do that if your paper is absolutely dry. I'm just going to brush this off over here away from the apple that's wet. I was like, yeah, I don't, their feathers are so smooth that I want to make sure I don't have that line showing through. So I need to make this kind of like brownish gray. So I'm going to start off with the burnt sienna. And make sure I have enough because I don't want to have to stop and remix and not have the right color. And now I'm going to add some ultramarine blue to that and get that soft, warm gray. Okay, I added too much blue, so I need to go in with some more brown. My dirty water is not turning into chocolate milk, so I know that the colors are nice and transparent, which is good. Now see, that's a pretty neutral gray. I need that a little bit. Well, I want to have some that's a little bit warmer. I wouldn't mind keeping some of that real dark color. Get a little bit of brown. There. And then I'm also going to just take the dirty brush and come over to the yellow ochre because I'm going to want some of that for highlights. And I think I'll go in first with that lighter color that I want for the highlights. And I'm just going to keep an eye on where I want to keep the white. So I've got this area around the eye that I want white. And this area between the two black patches on the face. Now I'm just going to tip my paper as I'm doing this because then I can kind of work out from here, and then I should get a pretty smooth wash. That's a pretty color. I like that a lot. And there is a nice glowy highlight on the back of the neck and on the back of the feathers on the head, but I really think that will be really well done in colored pencil, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. I used to be kind of a purist, and I only wanted to use, like if I was doing a watercolor, I only wanted it to be watercolor. I didn't want it to be mixed media. I didn't want to have to go to something else. But then but the more that I painted, the more I realized that using the material to get the look you're after is fine, and it can make your painting so much more enjoyable. Okay, I'm going to bring that darker color down between the shoulder blades. I'm going to add a little water to my mix. More water, I want that a little bit lighter. Probably looks really awkward. For colored pencils, I really like, for colored pencils I use over watercolors, I really like Prismacolors because they are a little more opaque, and so they really stand up on the watercolors. And they also have this, they just have just enough translucency so I can see what's going on underneath the colors, but I still get that pretty, I get enough of an opacity to make an impact. Sometimes I don't know when I'm painting if what I'm saying makes any sense, because I'm kind of like zoning out, going into the flow state a little bit. Okay, now I think I have this wing actually a little too high up, so I'm going to just connect up with that other edge and bring it across like that. Adding some water because I have this a little bit dark and it gets a little lighter on the tummy. So I'm adding water in on my palette. I'm blotting off the excess because I want that tone. I want that pale tone, but I don't want to have all that water in my brush because it's going to want to back run. So keeping your paper at an angle like this will help the gravity, will help feed it down to the bottom of the painting and avoid back runs. But you still don't want to flood it with so much water that it wants to back run on you. I'm just flicking out these little feathery areas because I don't want that to be real harsh. Now if I feel like an area is drying and I'm going to get a back run, what I'll do is I'll just go right over it. I'll just kind of disturb that paint layer. Now you do have to watch that you don't end up just pushing all that paint layer to the outer edge and getting a hard edge. That happens sometimes. And I'm just going to try to mix up a little bit darker, but kind of pasty, not really wet. I just want to get some darker color right in here, and if I don't have it too wet, it shouldn't back run, and it should just keep the paint right there where I want it. Okay. And yeah, I can go in and do this wing here. I think I want to just kind of sketch in with my brush. There's a little bit of a patterning on the wing that I want to kind of preserve. Kind of like that, maybe. And this is all being done wet on dry for the bird. Okay, I'm going to make that a little bit darker in here, a little bit more blue. And I don't like that hard edge. So I think I'll actually end up, I think what I'll do is I'm going to wash right over that whole area again because I got that hard edge where the wing stops and I don't like it. So this isn't ideal, but you know what? It happens. And now you'll know what to do if you've got a really streaky wash and you don't like it. It's a teachable moment. This is not the best controlled wash because I didn't start off with a bead of paint because I wasn't sure that's what I was going to do. But it is a pretty small area, so I don't really need to do that. And this paint might just be prone to streaking, which I have a feeling it may be because I was finding that in the swatches. But we'll see. We'll see what we can achieve with these inexpensive paints. I'm not really happy with that wash, I've got to say, but we'll let it dry and then we'll see what happens. I'm going to let that dry before I go into that wing as well. There is a little area up here that I'll want white, so I'm going to maybe try to blot that off now. I don't know. I'm not too... Let's see, that would be like right there. Yeah, I think I'm going to need to scrub it out, but after it's dry, otherwise I'll get a back run. All right, I'm going to work on the little branch there. I'm going to do burnt sienna and a little ultramarine blue because it's pretty much the same color as the bird. So I'm going to use the same colors I painted the bird with. And I can go ahead and get the feet in there as well. And I can get the little stem on the bottom of the fruit. I'm going to go ahead and make a nice dark color. I'm going to use a small brush though, and I'm going to go right into the, make it black with the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna. Very little water here. You want it kind of like a paste. And I'm just going to go in here and get the eye area. And actually I'm noticing that it's actually a little bit lighter on the top of the head over the eye area because I zoomed in on my computer. I really like to use my reference photos on my computer whenever I can because I can zoom in and see a lot more detail. When I wet my brush, I just dip it into that other mixture of gray that I had on my palette. So I'm going to get this area under here on the throat. And there's a little separation. The beak is dark. The tip of it anyway, and then it kind of goes back like that. And then the top is going to be lighter, so I'm just going to add a little water to my brush. Do this part a little bit lighter. Okay, I did get a stray mark there. I was a little careless when I put in a wash, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Or ever. I think it's just there. That's how it's going to be. Okay, since I have that dark color on my palette, I'm going to go ahead and get some of the details on the wing. Now, let's see. There's a dark area here. I completely drew the shape backwards. Yeah, it should have been a parallelogram the opposite way, but good thing it's practicing. I'm teaching a class tonight, so I guess it's good I got some practice. And let's see, there is like a little row of white with some markings kind of like that. Okay, and on the tip of the tail you got some yellow. I'm just going to use yellow ochre because that's what I've already used. I think it's yellow enough. Definitely if I use it pretty strongly. Oh yeah, that's yellow enough. Don't have enough water on my brush though to make it go. Okay, I want to put a little bit of that yellow inside the fruit. Okay, now I think I want to do a little bit of layering with this fine brush on the kind of leg and belly area there. I'm going to turn everything though because I want to be comfortable when I'm working on it. I'm holding at an angle, hopefully you can see really well what I'm up to. Just kind of hatching. Could have a little more blue in my mix actually. I am noticing it's a little bit cooler. The wings are warmer, the under pinnings are a little cooler. And it goes a little bit warmer again at the legs. This is just a hatching technique, just like if you were drawing and you were going to be cross hatching. And I felt like the neck needed a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go ahead and just do that right there. Definitely going to need some colored pencil, I think, to flesh things out and smooth things out. When you're working with really light mixes, often you load up your brush and you blot off the extra water, so just kind of keep that in mind if you find that you're having a hard time controlling all the water on your brush when you're doing really light washes. Alright, I'm going to try to scrub out some of the white that should be on the back wing, and since this is a student grade paint, it probably will work pretty well. And I really just want to get this shape like that over here. Oh yeah. That'll lift off just fine. Won't be quite as bright white, but not bad, really. And I can get a little bit off the edge of the wing. There's a little bit I want to get. There, that's good enough. Okay, and then, oh, I also want to lift a little bit right there, just to give it a little lift. You could do that with a colored pencil as well. And a little bit on the shoulder blade here, which again you could do with a colored pencil. Student grade paints lift really easily, so that is definitely a bonus. Any place you need to soften or lift, you can do that really easily. Alright, don't like the hard edge I have over here. So I'm going to try, it can be difficult to lift and not just push everything to the edge, so I'm just kind of scrubbing and pushing it inward. I think I'm really just going to need some colored pencil there. Okay, I really think this is about all I need to do with the paint. I'm going to dry this, and then we'll go in with some colored pencil details in a minute. Okay, the picture's dry. The first thing I'm going to do is go in with a white pencil because I know that I will be able to get my brightest highlights. The Dewdrops, sorry. I got the battery powered pencil sharpener. I did want to get some Dewdrops over here, and I'm like, oh, I better sketch that in before I attempt it, and I'm just going to do that in a red pencil. Let's get a couple on there. Oops, pressed a little too hard there. Drops follow the shape of the object that the dewdrop is falling on. So let's see, do I have another one up here maybe? Okay, so now I'm going to go in with this white. I probably will need to sharpen some pencils. See, I can get rid of that harsh edge just by hitting with a light. I will need to put some blue into those highlights as well. I want to get a nice bright highlight on that dewdrop though. I'm going to go right in on the face. Back of the neck there. There's a lot of really nice highlight here. I guess I probably could add my background a little bit darker if I wanted the feathers to really glow against it. Add this little glow at the edge of the feathers here on the tail. Getting these highlights in because white, you know, it can be a little bit weaker of a color. So getting it in before you've added any other pencil can help you retain it. The white Prismacolor pencils I find to be a bit on the cool side, so often I will use cream and sometimes just like soft yellows to get warmer highlights. You know, a little bit of a glow up there. Get this white back here. I'm going to add some of this white into these whites because I want to match the other part. It's kind of like going on top of gouache, working on top of this student grade watercolor because it's kind of a super matte. So it works really nicely for mixed media anyway. Alright, so we've got this waxy highlight under the pecked area of the apple. We've got some over here as well, a little bit firmer. Have some up here. Light's really hitting the area up here. I'm going to take this dark. This is Tuscan Red. This is an old Tuscan Red. It looks much redder than, because I drew this with Tuscan Red. This to me looks a lot redder than the Tuscan Red I drew with. Of course, this is a Prismacolor Premier, and that's a Prismacolor Color Ace. Just shading a little bit. I'm going to add a little in here like that, just kind of give that, it's weird because you can see that there's a shadow, there's an indent, and there's actually somehow getting some light in the indent, getting a cast highlight, or getting some cast light in it, and the shadows above it. So that's why you always want to, if you have good reference material, look at the reference material and see what is really happening instead of guessing if you're not sure. I love how this fruit is a little shriveled, so it's not perfectly symmetrical. I think that's kind of cool. Alright, I do want something that's a little bit closer to the local color there. So something that's a little bit of a cool red. Something like this, maybe this, well, it's actually called purple. It's one of the old ones, of the old Prismacolors, the barrel Prismacolors. I have such a mishmash. Didn't intend this to be such a colored pencil tutorial when I started. I'm going to have to sharpen this, excuse me. I really like using a electric sharpener because I find that I get, it works so much better. It doesn't break my lids and it's so quick. And these pencils here have traveled with me for a long time. I don't think they've made the barrel one since the early 80s. I don't like that grainy area there. That's the only thing, like, I find that when I'm working with Prismacolors, or color pencils I should say, it doesn't have to be Prismacolors, there's a certain look that I like, and it's usually a highly burnished look, which means you've kind of layered them up and you've smoothed it out. And then when I see this kind of grain that you get typically on watercolor paper when you're using pencils because of the roughness, even though this is a hot press paper, then I get kind of like, oh, I don't want to see that, I don't want to see that grain, I want to smooth it out. Actually, I might try a blender that might work a little bit better. That way I can kind of feather out those edges and not have to cover up everything. This is just, basically it's a pencil that contains the wax and a little bit of pumice, I think, but it doesn't have any pigment in it, so you can kind of manipulate and smooth out and blend colors together. And what I'm going to try to do is just kind of drag it out a little bit so I get a little bit of a softer transition. I think I will need to add a little bit more. And I should do that before I get too carried away here, because if I don't, I'm going to flatten out the tooth and I won't be able to stick anything else there. So let me grab some yellow ochre. I like keeping all of my pencils handy. I'm just going to do a real light layer of this. And let me grab a little bit of more of a bright red, the raspberry color, I think. Yep. Ooh, this will be pretty in the dewdrop a little bit. And then I can blend it out because there'll be enough wax to help move everything around. I was saying, I'm just going to do a nice quick and easy tutorial. Actually, what I plan to run today is actually going to run on Friday, so you're going to get a little bonus tutorial this week. I couldn't post it today because I had to wait on something, so. But I don't like to miss Wednesdays because that's my most popular video. That's my most popular day. People love to paint watercolors. Okay, you can also blend with white. So if, like, let me put a little bit of color there. You can varnish with white, and that's going to lighten your colors. But I also think it looks really nice. Like there, I can get that cast highlight there. But it does lighten things. So you just want to keep that in mind if you know, if you're going to burnish with white. Or you can find, sometimes your white pencils, if you've ever used a white pencil and you're like, I don't like this, it's so disappointing, I'm not getting any color, you might want to just save that pencil and use it as a blender. And because it won't really affect stuff much, but it might give you just the look that you want. I'm just doing this to give a little bit of a waxy haze onto the apple. I really like the way that apple looks. I don't know about you, but I think it looks pretty darn cute. I like it. Okay, and I do know I will be using some black in this on the face, so I'm going to go right ahead and add a little bit into the little bottom of that that plant because I know I want to use some of this up here in the face. Now, a lot of times I don't use black, especially if it's just watercolor, but I have I've kind of loosened up a little bit lately, and I find that I do like it in certain situations. I'm going to sharpen this, so pardon moi. There we go. It didn't take long. It wasn't too bad. I apologize. That's probably someone's going to have headphones on. They're going to be like, Lindsay, you're killing me. My poor ears. I apologize if there's any babies napping when I'm doing that. I should probably just go through and edit that. Well, I'm talking about and then that will make no sense when you're like listening to this. So edit what? What are you talking about? Edit out all of the sharpening. I can throw in some details like black on black kind of, so we have that mixed black. I can go in and I can go over what I've already painted for a little extra dimension like I did with the white, which is kind of a nice thing to be able to do. I feel like I need some brown in there, but I can do that with the pencils as well. Alright, do a little bit of a definition under there, a little bit of a shadow. You see I'm adding this black everywhere, so it's going to be harmonious. If I was just using it in one spot, like if I just used it there and didn't use it anywhere else, you'd be like, oh, that looks awful. What'd you do that for? It can be difficult to see these details. Something you can do when you're looking at the reference photo, if you click on it, a lot of times a little tab will come up, or it'll say edit and create if you're on like a Windows computer. And what you can do is you can go in and you can adjust levels and brighten things up so that you can see things better. Because sometimes it's just really hard to see those details that you need to see when you're painting. So try that if you find yourself in that situation. You want to make sure you can see what you're trying to work on. Okay, I think that's probably enough with the black, except I'm going to do a little more on the apple though, because I feel like that's just way too harsh. Now that I look at that, it's like, whoa, Lindsay, that was a little much. So I'm just going to very, very, very gently scumble a little bit of that in the fruit. Doesn't matter what color you use, guys. Make it match, make it work. Hey, if this is a really long video for just an everyday thing, maybe put it on in the background while you're cooking the turkey this week. You know, maybe you've got a little free time, get some time off from work next week with a holiday. If you're in the United States and you know, use that, you don't have to watch this right when it comes out. You can save it for later. That's what the watch later playlist is for. I do that all the time because sometimes I want, like, the video will be long, but I want to watch it or I want to listen to it. So I'll wait until I'm going to be doing some oil painting or something, and I'll have that on. And oh, there's a scar on that for, like, to paint imperfections. Wait until you've got the time and then do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, something I noticed with the light on this is that it had a blue tint to it. So what I'm going to do is just find myself a nice light blue-gray pencil. This color here is called Blue Slate. It's just a real soft color. I don't need to sharpen it because I'm just going to go in and kind of almost use it again to burnish. Just add some of this cool color. So there's just, the apple is so reflective, so it's going to reflect any of these colors that we see. So that's why I'm going in and adding it there first before I put it anywhere else. And then I can see that this can go over my white there because the light is bluer. It can go up here. It can go, it's funny, I can see more blue light up here. And I can see more golden light in there. I can see a little bit of blue in there. And I can see a little bit of blue in here. White is rarely ever just white, so kind of keep that in mind. I also noticing that I could have a little bit, I want a new brown. I want to have a different brown in here. I really like this one. And since it's blunt right now, what I'm going to do is actually just kind of use that to warm up. A little bit over here and a little bit over the head. It's really, these waxwings, I believe that's the name of this bird. It just looks like they're kind of like mousy brownish gray, but their gray is very complex. And using mixed media to capture that is really, really useful. I have like no pressure here. Sometimes people ask me, I'll be doing a technique and they'll be like, oh, I wish I could do that, but I have arthritis. This technique here would not bother your arthritis. I'm just holding it, I don't know, I'm holding like this, probably just to get it at the right angle, but I'm not putting any pressure down. Very, very light. I'm holding it like this because I want control. If I hold it way back here, I'll get no pressure, but I'll also be a little bit out of control with it, and I don't want that. So, just going to go over, tone down that highlight a little bit. So I'm not crazy about these paints. Oh, I don't know if I'll review them. So far, I'm not crazy about them. But as in a project like this, where I'm layering up over it, it lifts off really well, so that's good, and it lets me layer on top, so that's good. But would I recommend somebody spend $30 plus on these? On these, probably not. I like the other Paul Rubens products, and I think those are a fantastic value. And in fact, I mean, the Paul Rubens, the artist grade Paul Rubens aren't that expensive. So I think I would just save up a little longer and get the artist grade and don't mess with the student grade. I mean, I don't think they're bad. I think they're kind of in the same realm of like Reeves, maybe Arteza. I don't know, they don't crack in the pans like the Arteza do, but I don't know. They kind of also remind me of the Joy Art watercolors I had used a while back. I think that for $33, I think you'd be better off to get fewer of a better quality paint. Even though these are certainly, you certainly can work with them. Don't get me wrong. But, and I think they'd probably be reasonably light fast just because of the pigments that I'm seeing on the tubes. But workability, the amount they want to streak, they don't feel completely transparent to me, although they did look pretty good dried down in their pan, so maybe they're more transparent than I think. And they're not dry hard as a rock, so maybe they'll change a little bit as I work with them. But as of now, I would recommend, if you're going to spend 30-something, 33 bucks, spend $34 and get the Paul Rubens pan set of 24. It's going to be a much better investment. It comes with a palette, whereas these don't. And the paint's a lot nicer. I was very excited I had high hopes because I really liked their, they're student grade, I mean they're professional grade paints, and they were such a great value, but I feel like these are just a little lacking. Adding a little bit of lightness in the tips there. And carrying that highlight. I need a little more of a golden highlight. What I usually use for that is cream. I think my most used Prismacolors are white, cream, indigo, and terracotta. But I have recently been using black as well, so. I think those colors are all found in like the basic. I think like they're in the smaller sets. I think they're like in like the 36 set. So you don't have to go and buy a huge set unless you want to, or unless you see a really screaming awesome deal on them, because sometimes that happens and that's always nice. Oh, brown. I want a little brown in here, because you know how fruit gets all kind of like brown, like apples and stuff, once it's exposed to the air? So I want to get that in there. Burnish it with a little cream. Highlights on this side look a little bit warmer, so I'll use the cream for that. And this is a little wonky. Sorry about moving that over so much. Add a little bit of this cream in here. Ooh, that looks better. Maybe I'll burnish with cream. Cream's pretty pigmented, though. Let's get a warm gray. I like having, after I just said you don't need to get the full set of grays, I do like having a lot of colors, and I do like the Prismacolor range. They have a lot. They're not as expensive as a lot of the other brands, and they do have a really nice range. They have a really nice grays too. I honestly though, I kind of wish I stopped earlier because I'm not loving all of the color pencil. And that's the thing. I think that if I had a more reliable watercolor I started with, then I would have had a much easier time and I wouldn't have had to add so much color pencil. But you know what? I'm also going to be doing this painting in oils. Probably not as a video, unless you guys want me to record it as a video. I was just going to do it for my own enjoyment, but in my own personal oil painting challenge. But you can let me know if that's something that you would find interesting. I do find that once I do something in watercolor, then I do the oils, it's so much quicker and easier to do it in the oils. That's probably why a lot of people used to do that. They would do watercolor sketches on location and then they'd go back to their studio and do oils, because it is nice to go to look at your sketch in watercolor when you're working on an oil painting. But this isn't precious. I'm not worried about it. I'm not, even though I said, you know, I'm not really happy with this is coming out, I'm not disappointed because I'm having fun. And oftentimes, you know, I don't like a painting when I first do it, and it's not until the next day that I'm like, oh, you know what, that's not too bad. I usually dislike my paintings when I first do them. And I just hope by the time, you know, by the time the video is published, I'll like it. Ooh, doesn't that just, that's a nice little blue highlight. I like that. That's pretty. This is a nice color. I like that color. What is that again? Blue slate. That's a winner. I like that. Do a little bit in the tail. I don't want to grab another, well, I could add another yellow in there. I just feel like that tail does need to be a little bit brighter. Oh, what shall we use? This is lemon yellow. Man, I keep grabbing these old school, like, barrel Prismacolors. That's so funny. Okay, now that I've used that somewhere, I'm going to add it elsewhere because that's just such a vibrant color. There we go. It can drag the eye inward over here. Boy, that looks way too yellow, doesn't it? I'm going to do some, you know what, let me do some of this on there. Huh. Oh, there we go. Just burnish on some white, tone that down a little bit. And I think that's really just about all I need to do on this. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna call it done. So let's zoom out and show you how it all turned out. Wow, this was a long video. But I'm getting better about not, like, you know, completely freaking out over my long videos. There you have it. That was fun. It's all right. I really like the way the apple came out. I'm not so sure about the bird, but I think it's all right. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And until next time, happy creating!